reconciliation. Man, this is a text that's had a lot of resonance in our own church in the last 25 years, 30 years, I guess, at this point. Paul in this text he gives us another image for how we should think of ourselves, and it's a great one. Ambassadors. What is an ambassador? An ambassador is somebody who goes on behalf of other people, and tells people about the great place you come from. He says that's what the Christian community. That's your job. You are to be an ambassador out there. So your job is not to be a salesperson. It's not to be a warrior. You're trying to bash people over the head for your beliefs. No, you are an ambassador, trying to just say what a great place this has been. I often think about being a person of faith as it's like restaurants. If you went to a restaurant, the food was great, the atmosphere was cool, and it was inexpensive. You would have no hesitation in going to all your friends saying, "You've got to try this place out. It's awesome." You wouldn't feel like you're being pushy or being a jerk or anything like that. You're saying you don't have to go.
Intolerant.
Yeah.
Towards all other restaurants.
It's like you don't have to go. I'm just telling you. I went to this restaurant. I had a great experience. I think that's what being a person of faith. That's a great image to say, hey, you should check this place out or read this book. I had a great experience with it. It doesn't mean everyone will. There's something wrong with someone if they don't. But so he starts off with this image of us being ambassadors. Ambassadors of what? He says we have a ministry of reconciliation, and this is just this is cool. Where he says, what has Christ done? Christ has destroyed the walls of hostility that divide us one from another. And he says Christ was actually made to be sin, he who knew no sin, and that in him, everything that keeps us apart is absolutely destroyed right now. And what Paul is trying to say is imagine what it would be like if all the things that frustrate you and hack you off about your family member, your neighbor, what if right now all of that was taken away? That's what it is like. It says in Christ, that then is a latent now. And the difference between a Christian and a non-Christian, it's not salvation. Like Christians are in and everyone else is out. No. The difference is the Christians actually believe this insanity. We actually believe that there is nothing separating us from God or from one another. And so therefore we have this ministry of reconciliation that we are to get out there and to both model and then tell people, hey, there's nothing keeping us from one another.
I love that.
It's radical.
Because so many times I think the ambassador of what is so key. Because unfortunately Christians have a bad history of being ambassadors of judgment.
Yeah, nice, yeah.
Or ambassadors of judgment, or ambassadors of division. When it's like, and they use Paul for it.
Yes.
Like Paul is the one who always gets cited for being divisive. And it's like, well, why don't we cite Paul on this, on being ambassadors of reconciliation and ambassadors of openness?
Yeah, I mean, can you imagine, what would it be like if when you heard the word Christian, and I know right now if you were to say evangelist or Christian, words like intolerant, holier than thou, sanctimonious, judgmental, these things just pop up in our lexicon. What if beautiful, creative, loving, kind, generous? I mean, what if those were the words when somebody goes, I think those Christians are just crazy because they're showing us like too much love and compassion. That's how it ought to be. Yeah. But
it does, and like our popular culture does this a lot too, where it's the crazies of the Christian community that are loud and stand up and say, "Don't take our guns." That was some sort of Christian.
No, don't joke about that. Jesus had a lot of guns. You may not have known that, but
he kept them he kept them in Bethlehem.
Maybe I had that different.
Well, you're from Texas.
It's a different gospel, right?
The sash is really a bullet hole there.
We're back to the Che Guevara image again. Jesus is Che. I like this.
I don't even
So we're just imagining what would it be like
Yeah.
if we actually lived into Paul's image
Yeah.
of being ambassadors of reconciliation.
Yeah, and if we could change the culture for what Christians are, is instead of these right-wing nut jobs who shame everyone for not being exactly like them, to be people who talk about peace and reconciliation and equality and love, and are more likely to hug you than slap you.
I'm just feeling like singing Kumbaya right now, Nicole. Do you want to join me? I'm kidding.
After I just said let's reconcile.
Very well. There's reconciliation, and then
There's creepy.
Yeah, there's just weird. Yeah. So that's the
Let's try not to
ministry.
be weird.
Reconciliation. And then, do you want to kind of finish this up? Speaking
Yes.
of weird and creepy, with Paul's thorn.
Paul talks about how he has this thorn in his side, and he never elaborates on it. That there's just something that keeps him back, keeps him ashamed, or not ashamed, but like, yeah, maybe ashamed, but like there's something that is always
And
kind
he
of
wrestles with and struggles with.
struggles, yeah. Which is, I love that he puts this in to a community that is struggling after he's basically been telling them how to fix it. He ends it with like, I'm not perfect either. I have my own struggles, just as you guys are having struggles. What's been interesting about this, and because Paul is vague, is when commentators talk about it, often what we assign to be his thorn is a reflection of what the pastor or the culture is struggling with. So it would be fascinating just to read commentaries and like compile them of what Paul's thorns have been. We were talking earlier, and like during the 1830s and 40s, people would say that Paul's thorn was the fact that he had a slave.
A hidden slave. And he felt bad about it.
And he didn't know what to do with it. And I was like, well, why don't we read Philemon?
I try to kick the slave habit, and I just keep going back.
Yeah, and like now.
What's that in your shirt? Is that a slave? No,
it's
don't look at me. Don't look at me.
And then some people now, especially, are reading it as that he was really gay.
Yeah.
And okay, whatever.
Paul never elaborates at all.
At all. He just says, I have an issue that I struggle with.
So, and then
And
we
silent.
project
And done.
all of our anxieties.
And all the issues that we're struggling with onto it. And so that's what I want to say about that.
And I think that's a good word for
Yeah.
Paul in general, of kind of a word of caution for us.
Uh-huh.
Of reading too much in. Often, he's writing to communities we don't know very much about issues that are very strange to us.
Yeah.
And I think when Paul is often used in ways that are hurtful, often it comes down to reading quickly and assuming he's talking about things that have a one-to-one relationship with something today. And I think that's very rare.
Very rare.
He's much more elusive, and like you would be in a letter. Youd write to somebody and just assume, you have common knowledge.
Yeah, and I think also he is learning that his letters are not staying within the community.
Yeah.
That they are getting passed around, and I think you see that in the development of Paul's letters, that he becomes more vague as he goes, or more aware.
Circumspect.
Yeah, he becomes more aware that although he's writing to the Corinthians, more than just the Corinthians are going to be reading it. So.
All right.
He does that.
Well, that's 2 Corinthians. We'll come back at you next with Galatians. We'll see you then.
Angry Paul. Bye.